Have you ever wanted to track property changes in HubSpot easily? Let's say you have an email and you want to see the current email address as well as a previous email address side by side in something like a segment or a list in HubSpot. Well, in this video, I'm going to break down different ways to do this based on your subscription, based on your workflow capability, whether you have Zapier. And so, yeah, that's what I'm going to dive into in this video. Hi, my name is Ryan Schweihart, founder of Wimpact, where I help organizations implement HubSpot and Zapier. So in today's Winsight, or Whole Heart Insight, I'm going to dive into just all the different ways to track property history within HubSpot, as well as a way to do this using Zapier. So we're going to run through a decent amount. I'll try to chapter this out, but bear with me. Hopefully there's a use case that applies to you that you can take and implement depending on what subscription you have or things like that. So the first thing to point out, so came about in working with a client. They have the ability to create an event. So if we come here to data management, event management, and create an event and a custom event. So I believe it's on a pro or above, pretty much on any hub. If you're at a pro level or enterprise, you should be able to track object changes. And so let's say we come into contact here, we search for email, we want to track those property changes. And then basically anytime the email is known, I want it to go ahead and track property changes. So that's the easy, straightforward way out of the box capability. It starts to become a little bit trickier whenever we start to limit visibility of, say, a property. So you can only select properties that are visible to all users in the portal. So if an email has limitations on who can see or edit that property, then we won't be able to go about this process even at a pro or an enterprise level. So that's where the issue came up and the different ways to come about getting what we wanted to be able to be displayed. Because ultimately what we're after is something like a segment or a list with a name that has the email, the current email address, as well as the previous email address. So yeah, diving into it, if I go ahead and limit the email property visibility to say, okay, only certain users can view or edit. So if I save that, come back here and refresh this and go to create an event, custom event, track object changes. We search for that email property. It's no longer available because we have limited the visibility of that particular property. So we're going to go down a couple different paths to go ahead and still get what we want, which is again this list or segment showing tracking the property changes. So we've got our demo contact here. I put in last test, and I'm actually going to say that this is the final test. So we'll save that. And while that runs, what we should see is last test come over here to previous email, and then final test should come in here to this email address. So the first thing we had to do is set up our previous property. So in our case, we're working on an email. So I went ahead and created a previous email property. I went ahead and made it an email type. This is a newer property type from HubSpot. That's pretty much it. If you have an enterprise level, I probably recommend going ahead and managing the property access here to view only, so that way people don't overwrite the value that's here, because it's meant to be kind of a historical log. But if you don't have that, you can just kind of keep it hidden, and there's a high likelihood that no one will ever touch or edit that previous email. So that was the main thing to do. And then let's go ahead and build our workflow. And so what we do here is within HubSpot, if we come over to automation and workflows. That'll take us to the workflows page. And then from the top right, you can create your workflow. And then what we want to do, we have our email on a contact record. So on our piece here, if we change our trigger, we do when an event occurs. So basically when a property value is changed and we want to do it on the email itself, we can find it. Okay, here it is. And so we just want to know when that email is known. Then we want to re-enroll in case that contact gets their email updated again in the future. And then we'll save that. And then we have a custom code step. So this is going to need to be on Data Hub Pro to be able to unlock the custom code capability. I'll show you an example with Zapier here in a second. So that way, if you don't have Data Hub Pro, but you have Zapier, we can still achieve the desired solution. So I just picked a custom code step. So if we were to come here, and then on the left, there's Data Ops, custom code. Go ahead and select that step. I've already got it built out. And so then what we'll do is just select the Node.js language here. I put in a little description. It's just getting the previous email. I went ahead and set up an access token. So what I did here is I leveraged, if you go to settings and integrations, HubSpot now has a service key, and that works in most situations when you just need some sort of private access token. And so that's what I did here is created that service key, and really all that we're looking for is the contact email. So all we need to do is contacts.read as far as the scopes go. But if you're reading a company object or something like that, you'll want to make sure that you select the desired scope. And then once you get your private access token, you'll go ahead and copy that and come over here and add a secret or manage secrets. So you'd come here to add a secret, give it whatever you name you want to use. I just do access token, and then you put in your private access token from the service key. So I have that selected, and then we're just going to enroll the object ID. So the contact record ID, I have that set to object ID, and then it's getting the record ID of the enrolled contact. As far as the code itself goes, I'll put this in my blog post on my website. So if you're watching this on YouTube, a link to that will be in the description. But yeah, for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. You just watch out for, whatever you name your access token here. I've named it access token with the T capitalized. And so just keep in mind, if you name it something different, you'll need to update that portion of the code. And then also the property itself, as well as the object, may need to be tweaked. So if you're using company ID or company property, then you may want to put in company ID, then you need to change company ID here. You need to change the endpoint here to companies. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for that piece. And then the property that you're looking for, email is the one we want to find the history of. So email is what we put in here. You need to change it there, here, and then whatever you want to call your output. So in our case, previous email is what we use. So you'll need to change maybe this piece here. And then you'll need to add your output step. So to get that previous value and store it then to be used later in the workflow, you want to add an output. I selected string, put in previous email, need to match the output that's in your code. And then, yeah, once you get that, save it. you'll come over here and all that you'll do in this last step is edit the record. So you're going to edit the contact. You're going to select previous email, which is the property that we created. And then we're going to replace that value. And then whenever you come in to choose a value to use, you'll see this action data section and you'll see your custom code step listed. And then this is our previous email output that we'd want to select and map to. That way we'll write to the previous email property. So that's pretty much it. As far as the HubSpot workflow goes, we'll check to see that this ran. I think it did. So go back to, I feel like we're in a good spot there. And we'll go back to our segment. This is a dynamic segment, but sometimes segments are lists in HubSpot. Take a second to update. I believe we said we put in final test, so it hasn't quite processed yet. I'm going to go ahead and manually refresh to see if it's processed. There we go. We have final test at gmail.com, and then last test at gmail.com was the previous or most recent email that was listed here. So that's the HubSpot piece. The next item that we're going to go through is Zapier, and then I'll wrap it up with showing you how to export all property history for, say, the email property in HubSpot. So jumping over into Zapier and seeing what that setup looks like, we have, I'm going to go ahead and turn off our workflow here and turn on our workflow in Zapier. I'm going to hop into the edit Zap mode because a little easier to walk through. So as far as the step goes, I have the new contact property change as the trigger step. And this is going to be an instant step, so it should pretty much fire immediately. And I'm watching for that contact information email property. Then the next step that we're going to use is HubSpot's API request beta step. And all we're going to do is get information. Here's the endpoint that you would want to go ahead and put in. And then at the end, you'll want to map to your record ID from the trigger step. Be mindful of the contacts, the object type that your property is on. So if you're doing this on a company or a deal property or something like that, you'll need to edit this portion of the URL here. Then in your query string parameters, go ahead and put in properties with history as it's displayed here, and then grab the internal name of the property that you want to watch history for. And so just as a reminder for those that may not be familiar, whenever you're viewing the property settings, you're going to see the internal name here. So just that's where you'll need to grab it. You won't want to grab the label per se. And then the third step is going to be grabbing. So grabbing the appropriate, the second email basically in our case from the properties with history, because the first email is going to be the current value, but we want to watch for that second value. So we can use Zapier's utility step and just pick from list as far as the transform or function or whatever you want to call it. And then as far as operation goes, if you hop over into, whenever you're setting this up, you're going to select the drop down and it's going to say choose first, choose last, choose random. Well, we don't want any of those steps. We want the second value in our list of emails. And so you'll have to hop over into the custom mode by clicking the three dots and going to custom. And it's going to be like at index 0. So 0 is the first value, and then 1 is technically going to be the second value. So essentially all that you're going to need to do is manually type in 1 here. Then you're going to map the input to the response data properties with history, email value in my case. And so it'll be a comma separated value list. And that's pretty much it. That'll get you the second value in that list. And then we're just going to write back to the contact and map to the object ID. So we're going to use the update contact step as our fourth step in the Zap. And we're going to set the record ID of the object that we want to update, and then we'll scroll down to the value that we want to apply it to. In our case, we want to do the previous email. So we're going to map our output from the third step and apply that here. So let's go ahead and hop into another contact and run that and process it. Let's say we've got Manuel Watson here, and we realized it's actually just Manuel Watson 1 and not Manuel Watson, all this other stuff. So we'll go ahead and update that to Manuel Watson 1. We'll click Save. And again, we turned off this HubSpot workflow, so we're operating on our Zap here. So I'm going to give that a second to process. If we look at our Zap runs, should be able to refresh this and see, okay, we had the step occur. And if we hop back over into our segment here, again, it should refresh on its own every 15 minutes or something like that, but we can force the refresh. We should be able to see Manuel Watson come in at some point. While we're waiting for that to come through, the filters that I have set up on this segment, again, the property that we're watching, so email, let's say we want to watch for the last 6 months or 30 days or 60 days, whatever it may be, you can use email has been updated in the last, type in your number, days, and then also I really only care to watch for email values that have been input. I don't really care for emails that have been erased per se or cleared. So I'm making sure that that email value still is known. But you can put in some more filters as well. If you don't want to watch for the initial population of an email, maybe you're going to add previous email is known as well, because otherwise you might get every time an email is added for the first time, they would show up on this list and be displayed here. Let's go ahead and refresh one more time. There we go. We've got Manuel Watson that came through. Here is our current email without the dash and all the other characters. And this was the previous email that was displayed there. The last piece, if you're like, I don't need to track all this in a column. I just want to see the property history every so often for, in our case, email. You can come into settings, properties, make sure you find your appropriate property. It's going to always default to contact properties, but and then I've searched for email here. That's not what I want to do. So if you cancel out of that and hover over the property that you want to see history for, you can select more and then export property history. So that will give you the ability to see all the email changes across record IDs in a CSV file or Excel file, and you can take and do what you need with it from there. The last piece that I just was kind of reminded of whenever I was looking at this piece is whenever we want to say create a custom event, track property changes, you can do that from this property settings here. So if we just click on more here and track changes, then that's where we can create a property change event. Again, this is, to my knowledge, only on Pro or above, pretty much across any hub, but you need to be at Pro or above on any hub to be able to track property changes kind of out of the box, how default or how HubSpot allows you to do so. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed, but yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you set this up. If you want to set up a call or shoot me an email, my information's at the bottom of my website. Or if you want to book a meeting with me, by all means do so. And otherwise, I'll leave it there. Bye for now.